Hey everybody, it's Rajesh here.
And Tane here.
Welcome to our podcast, Baskets of Knowledge, Chats with a Difference. In our podcast, we invite guests from around the country and around the world to talk about how they got to where they're at the moment. It's about a journey, it's about an experience, it's about their life. Hello everybody, welcome to another episode of Baskets of Knowledge. As always, we really appreciate you listening in. Tane, welcome to the podcast again.
Thank you.
What's been happening since we last spoke?
Not well, a lot. Had all my exams, which were pretty full on, couple of days. But now I've come back home to New Plymouth, which is pretty exciting. First time in 7 months.
Awesome. That must be pretty cool to go back home. Do your parents, are they glad to see you, or are they like, oh, who's this guy here?
Yeah, they're glad to see me, but obviously, the further you get on in your journey, the more you realise that life still goes on for everyone else. It's not like things don't change, people don't drop things for you as much, like mum and dad know that I've gone away now, so it's not as big a deal for me to come home. I just come home and chill.
That's right, exactly. And then see you later. Thanks for coming. so different. And what have you learned in the last week since we've spoken?
I think something I've learned is I was watching a TV series, and something that they alluded to, which I think I could take on board, is sometimes there's nothing to do until there's something to do. And I think, as I reflect on finishing semester 1 and going into semester 2, it's easy for me to start planning on what I want to do next semester and all these goals and achievements I want to do right then. But semester 2 doesn't start for another 3 weeks. So, instead of focusing on so far ahead and burning myself out and keep carrying on doing things, it's better for me to just take a step back now, reflect on the semester I've just had, and actually just enjoy not having to do anything, because it's not going to always be like that. Yeah, that's a very, very cool piece of advice. I'm going to probably share that on my Instagram today, because I think that's really cool, because lots of people are stressing about semester 2. We haven't even finished semester 1. That's a great learning. And I think that dovetails really well to what I've learned in the last week. It's about values. Everyone has these values that we think about, and what are values? I want to be an honest person, or I want to help people, and blah, 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 blah. But I was into a podcast the other day, and they're like, oh, this is great. People say all these things here, but there's 2 ways to find out what your actual true values are. And I was like, oh, what is that? And the true values are, you look at where you spend your money, and you look at who you hang around with. And that'll show you what your true values are. And I was like, oh, this is really interesting, because most of us look inwardly for our values. But if you look at your bank account and go, actually, where am I spending all my money? That's going to show you what you really value, because that's where you're spending your money. And also, who am I hanging around with? What am I doing? That's what your values, as opposed to those intangible things. So that got me thinking about, okay, cool. Let's think about tangible things, which dovetails to what you said. Hey, things happen when they happen, not before that. Awesome. And as always, we can keep bantering about these philosophical things that we learn, but we're not here about us. We are here to talk to and with our fantastic guests. As always, with this podcast, we like to bring you humans from around the place that we think are pretty amazing. Everyone's amazing, and everyone's got a story to tell. And today we are doing the same thing. We have a fantastic person. Emily, welcome to our podcast.
Thank you for having me. I'm really excited to be here.
Brilliant, Emily. Emily, for our listeners out there who are all across the world, do you want to tell them just about who you are, just briefly, at the stage in your life at the moment, and we'll go backwards after that?
Sure. So at this point in my life, I've just finished my first semester of my 4th year at Otago University. So I'm a science and commerce student. I'm studying a Bachelor of Science in Psychology and a Bachelor of Commerce, majoring in both management and marketing. Basically, on my journey through life, I'm originally from Christchurch, and I moved down to Dunedin in 2019. Did my first year in the halls, and then obviously going into the big wide world, and went flatting. And that's a bit of me at the moment. Yes, I've still got next semester and next year, so my total degree will be 5 years. So yeah, currently my status is student.
Brilliant. We love that. And there's some other stuff that we're going to talk about as well. So you're student at the moment, which is pretty cool. And let's start at the beginning. Emily, when I met you 2018, I guess, is when I first met you. If I said to you, hey, Emily, in 4 years' time, you're going to be doing a BCom and a BSc, what would you say to me?
honestly, I'd probably be like, haha, that's very funny, because my initial journey didn't start the way it's going now. And I'm very grateful for what I have gone through to know that where I am right now is where I want to be. So a little bit of background on that. Before I started university, I had this thought that I wanted to be a big, grander dentist. Hence one of the reasons why I moved down to Dunedin, because Otago's the only school that offered that profession. So I made the move, didn't even look at any other university, even though I knew, Otago's really great, because I could have moved back to Canterbury, but, Otago's for me. And yeah, so I started down the health science pathway and was going through that, but I actually found that I wasn't really enjoying the course. The subjects I was taking in first year weren't really me. I mean, I should have kind of known, because the areas I preferred in high school weren't around my science. So, reflecting back, maybe I should have thought about that earlier. So I get to the end of my health sci year and I'm looking back and I'm thinking, oh my goodness, what am I going to do? And so actually I went to the careers department at Otago, and they offered me kind of program thing where they have a look at your personality types and what kind of careers that your personality suits. And it was very interesting to go through that, because I remember this pivotal moment where the career advisor said to me, honestly, I'm not really sure why you'd ever want to go for dentistry, because on my list, the science was way at the bottom and all the commerce subjects were like right at the top. In fact, the top career path that came up for me was entrepreneurship. And I never really even knew what that was, never took any business in high school. So it's really interesting to have to go through that to know, okay, that does sound a lot like me, and it excites me a lot more knowing the growth that there is in that, rather than going down the dentist path where it could be quite restrictive and kind of like a tunnel vision of, this is what I'm going through and this is what I'm going to get in the end. So at the moment, my degree can be very broad, but I think it offers so much more opportunity, because there's just an endless amount of things that you can do with a Bachelor of Science or a Bachelor of Commerce. So yeah.
Yeah, what a great story. And I like to reflect about that, because a lot of people that are listening out there, it doesn't matter how old you are, is when you're a certain age, you think you want to do X, Y, Z. In your case, it was, I wanted to be a dentist. And we have no idea why we do that, right? Why did you think you want to be a dentist? Emily, do you know? Can you remember?
I think when we're young, we can get kind of stuck in some sort of mold, going in high school, people don't really say the jobs, like, I don't know, not random jobs, I shouldn't say that, but like, you're not going to be like, oh yes, I really want to be a marketing,
Yeah, totally.
social media manager for this company. That's not really something people say. It's kind of, in high school, you tend to say those bigger jobs that when you go through a degree, you're going to come out with that, whether it's
that's right,
doctor, engineer, dentist, So I think oftentimes people get stuck in that. Same with law, there's a lot of that. And that's why people do tend to have a lot of confusion coming out of high school, not really, seeing the whole picture just yet. So yeah, I think being also in the top stream at high school, that kind of pushes you one direction as well, because they would see you more, okay, go for law or go for health science and see from there. So yeah, I think that's where I kind of maybe looked at the options of those higher level professions, or like where you come out with like, I know this is the job that I'm going to get out of this degree. And maybe I was a bit closed-minded back then, and obviously not taking any business subjects didn't help my case because I've never been exposed to anything like that.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think that I just got stuck in it, and I had to go through it to know that that's actually not what I want to do.
Yeah, totally. And I think it's not just you. I think it's culture and culture and society. You know, like you said, Emily, you said it's the name vocation. You know, if you're in school and you say to somebody, and when you in high school and you go, I'm going to be a marketing manager, they'll be like, what the hell are you talking about? Versus I'm going to be a dentist, a doctor, an engineer, because those name professions are also what people know. And I guess Tana, you had the same thing as well, because you had physiotherapy as your title role that you're looking at initially.
Yeah, definitely. Those are the roles that were pushed, and it's just interesting you bring up talking about these professions and being in the higher stream in school, because that's what I found as well. You know, and on one side I had being in my classes where teachers would push me to go to university and look at these jobs and look at these opportunities, but I also had the other side where our school had a big dropout rate, and so there was a lot of vocational pathways being pushed as well. So it was quite interesting to battle between the two, but also see that, you know, some students weren't ever talked to about going to university or going to tertiary education, and that wasn't because they weren't capable of doing it, but more for the fact that it was seen that, oh, you're just going to fall beneath the cracks and drop out anyway, so why would we waste the talk about, you know, these opportunities, which was actually quite upsetting. But I guess, you know, as I've moved forward and gone forward, I see the reason why they've done it, and I guess it's just about how can we change that, because as you said, Pradesh, you know, it's a norm. It's not necessarily that they see it as a bad thing, and maybe it's just that's the way it's been, so that's the way we're going to continue.
Yeah, and I think that's something you both mentioned there, was that the expectation. You know, when you're in a higher stream, if you're going to say, oh, I'm going to go for a gap year next year and I'm just going to work at a hotel, they're like, what are you talking about? You're a top student. What are you talking about? And, you know, like you said, it's something that is really hard for you as a young person. You have all these expectations, pressures that you don't want to let people down, but you're not actually. It's just a perception. But anyway, Emily, you did that, which, you know, and I remember you because we had a lot of conversations about that, which is fantastic. But what I remember about you, Emily, was food was a big part of your life, and we're going to come back to that as in your story as well. And food is part of your life. And as you came to Otago, you did your health first year, all cool, happy days. And then, how did you decide that psychology was something you wanted to do? Because you mentioned business, you mentioned entrepreneurship, and where does psychology fit into this picture here?
So after doing my my first year, I obviously had papers that can go towards a degree, but those papers wouldn't fit in with I don't think I recall them fitting in with commerce. So it was either going into like the Bachelor of Arts or the Bachelor of Science. And I think at the time I also wasn't entirely like confident. So I thought, okay, I would rather do 2 degrees and where in areas that I'm most interested in, and then see how I go down that path. And I guess the thing with psychology, I thought would tie in really well with both management and marketing, because as someone said to me in the past, you know, psychology is there to help you and marketing is there to, you know, trick you. So it was quite funny thinking about that. And I do find that across my course there is overlap with my psychology and my marketing and management papers. So that's kind of why I went down the psychology path. I just had an interest to begin with, and then you know, it was reinforced that, you know, it would tie in with the other stuff I'm doing compared to something like chemistry or I don't know, something else like along those lines. It doesn't really go in with, you know, what I'm thinking more of doing down the path, but yeah.
I think you hit something really important there, Emily. You mentioned the word interest, and so many times on this podcast you've spoken to people that in their second years when they've found their interests, you know, they've gone to university, whatever university it's been, and they have an idea, but they've actually gone back to what their interest is as a human being. You know, too many times we look at school subjects and what we do at school, and we forget about you're actually a person out of school. And I think, you know, for you realize actually, wait a minute, yeah, cool. I want to be a dentist, but who is Emily actually? Emily is all this other stuff here, and that's how you follow your interest. So I'm going to come back to the food stuff because we're going to come back to your story in a second. The food stuff has always been fascinating for me because that's been a big part of your life. And one of the reasons why, Emily, I think you're a fantastic person and our guest is I'd like to talk about your entrepreneurship plan that you had in last year. Do you want to tell our listeners about what you did last year? It was last year, right? Was it last year?
Yep.
Yeah, audacious, right? Yeah.
Yes. So with the whole entrepreneurship side of things, obviously I haven't really dabbled in that too much. But an opportunity arose with Startup Dunedin, which they kind of help startups and entrepreneurs alike to start up their ideas, and they do a lot of things. But the particular program that I did was it's called Audacious. So basically, it's a student entrepreneurship program where I went in with an idea, and then you go through the several weeks, and then at the end, you present your pitch and hopefully get a good outcome, get to the finals and win some prizes. And I was very fortunate to win 4 prizes with my idea. So if I go into my idea a little bit further, my business was
before you tell that, Emily, do you want to tell us, you're doing psychology and marketing and management. What was the stimulation for you to go, actually, I'm going to enter this competition? Because lots of us are just doing stuff. Why would you do that there? Was there something externally, or was it just something you're like, hey, this is a cool idea?
I think it was a bit of 2 things. One, it was just a general interest because I've seen it advertised around university campus. And the second thing was kind of just to do some extracurricular activities, because coming from high school, where I was doing lots of sport, lots of arts, I was in heaps of clubs and stuff like that, and then coming to uni where you get so busy and caught up in things that you don't have as much time anymore. So I don't do sport. I just do my own personal exercise and things. But by doing Audacious, it kind of it was a healthy activity to do, because it kind of built on the skills that I can do with university and give me some experience going through things later on.
Yeah. I always find it interesting when people have an idea, and because I remember when I was at university, I took my idea to them and it got shut down pretty quickly. I always regret that. But I'm going to tell you my idea. So this was in 2006 or 7. So myself and my friend Yukai, we had done a lot of traveling, and when we were traveling, it's so interesting that when we travel, you're all in an airport, and I'm sure there's some random people that you could just talk to and just meet just randomly. So we wrote a proposal. In our proposal, we said, hey, everyone's going to have smartphones. Why don't we have a geolocation thing, so everyone's in a certain area, they can just meet the same people in the same area, and because why not? So we submitted that idea, and we got shut down saying this will never work. It's a silly idea. Then Tinder arrived. I was like, what the hell? This is exactly the same thing. This is your location. So we were always like, we should have just gone forward and not listened to them. But anyway, so it's really awesome that you persevered and went on with that. So yeah. So now you have this idea, you submit it, and let's talk about your idea. I think it's a very cool idea. But that's me just being biased. But anyway.
Thanks. So yeah, my business idea was called Zilla Nice Cream. So the concept was to take 2nd grade bananas from supermarkets, freeze them, and turn them into ice cream, or as I say, nice cream, and basically sell them commercially in supermarkets. So it was ultimately trying to mitigate food waste while still providing a healthy dessert option for New Zealanders.
And where did they come from? Did you just see bananas lying around and go, hey, ice cream? Or was there something that you read about when you thought about food wastage?
I kind of just had an idea from one of my papers, one of my marketing papers at university, where we had to come up with a new product to to bring out in the market basically, and do, you know, like a pestle analysis. So I won't go into the nitty gritty, but you know, I had that initial idea, and then I was like, wow, I could really use that maybe, you know, and take it further. So by going through Audacious, they taught you how to, you know, go through all the very many steps to then finally have an established product.
Which is pretty cool. And I was very privileged to get involved in that whole process. And I saw you go from the start through the end. So that was really cool. How was it? How did that feel for you? Because let's not forget, on top of this, you still have your university study. It's not instead of, it's part of. What is that like for you, getting that done?
It was so fun for me. I just loved getting involved and doing all that kind of stuff, because it was something that I can really take advantage of. You know, if it wasn't like a group project or something, it was, you know, if I had the time for it, I could really commit to it.
Yeah.
And I think I was very lucky in that sense that my semester at university wasn't as busy as other times. Like my semester this semester, whew, that has been very, very busy. So I probably wouldn't have been able to do it this semester, but you know, going back, I was really grateful for the process. And although my cohort ended up being mostly online due to COVID, there was really no excuse to really get involved. You know, the team at Startup Dunedin are just awesome, and they really help you along, you know, get you involved and, you know, in fun and quirky ways. So it doesn't make it like a lecture. You know, it was very, very personable, and, you know, they always had different speakers coming in. So, you know, the cheeky tea boys would come in and I'd ask them questions and be like, okay, so how did you do it? You know? So, yeah, I'm very grateful for that experience. And I think it's very valuable knowledge that I can take into my future endeavors.
Yeah, I mean, I mean, because you basically had an idea, you pitched the concepts, and essentially created the product without creating the product, which is pretty cool. Yeah, and for anyone that wants to look at it, there's some presentations out there. Your presentations were actually, because I watched it, I was like, I'm going to tune in to watch this stuff here, and your presentation was really awesome, and your slides are really quite cool. I'm just going to acknowledge that there. So we're going to come back to you as a young adult, I guess. So you said science wasn't your jam at school, or wasn't really the thing that that wasn't your floated your boat. But also, given that you're also involved in chiasma. Is that correct?
Chiasma.
Chiasma. Do you know, tell us what chiasma is? Because I think that's a pretty cool thing as well. Because that's, tell our listeners.
Yeah, so I'm basically a volunteer for Chiasma Dunedin, which is a student-led not-for-profit organization where we help bridge the gap from students to organizations in the STEM industry. So basically our role throughout the years to provide events that students can come to and get to know and talk to industry professionals and kind of offer them different options within the STEM industry, because it can be very difficult to find different jobs in that industry. So yeah, that's been really cool to be a part of, because being in a volunteer role, you know, we still have things we have to get done every week. And this is my second year now being with them. So last year I was a business executive, kind of in charge of finding industry professionals. And then this year I've stepped into a role where I thought was more applicable to my degree.
Yep.
So I'm the marketing lead for the team. So yeah, by being involved, I can practice some skills, get some experience that's really good for you know, jobs in the future, because you know, that's one up on other students that are doing the exact same degree, because how are they going to pick us apart when you get to the same job and we've got the exact same degree? So by having these extra experiences and extra you know, extracurricular activities, it means you can be one up of the person that's got the exact same certificate as you, I guess, you know.
Yeah, totally. And I like you said that, because when I talk to young people, I just say, when you go to university, your degree is not going to get you your job. It's your experiences along the way, and both of you are pretty active in trying to do that there, you know. And the cool thing for you is the things that you're doing related to the area that you'd like to work in at some point, which is fantastic. Tana, you're the same as you get involved with tons of things. We know that as well.
Yeah, definitely. I think it's just good to get involved as well, as we've said before, you know, to get away from the study, because when you go down to university, study makes up a small proportion of what you actually do, or what you actually take away, I should say. You know, at the end of the day, when you go away from university, it's not going to be the study that you remember, it's going to be the things you got involved with. And for me, coming down to Dunedin, where it's quite big, it's bigger than New Plymouth, it provided more opportunities than I was going to have otherwise.
Yeah, which is pretty crazy. And I think that's one thing that all universities across the world offer, these experiences which you need to get involved. It's not just about the books that you're going to be reading the whole time, which is not very exciting. Well, it could be exciting, but it doesn't give you that next stage. Sorry, it is exciting for my academics out there. And anyway, so if you finish LSAT first year, how did it feel for you to go, actually, hey, mom and dad, I'm still gonna, because you could have come back to Christchurch, you know, you could have come back to Christchurch. Did your family support the fact that you wanted to stay down south, or was it a, hey, come back here, close to home?
So my mum was very supportive throughout the whole process. She kind of, I think she felt in her heart when I was starting Hillside that maybe it wasn't so much for me.
Yeah.
And it's interesting looking back now, you know, she wasn't the only one that was like, oh, really? You want to be a dentist? Like, oh, that's interesting. Like, I wouldn't see you doing that.
Yeah.
So, yeah, anyway, so I think when I chose to pivot and do something else, I think mum was excited for me, but she was probably a little bit nervous too, because it's obviously something I'd never looked at before. And so she was like, oh my gosh, like, you need to make sure you know what you're doing, and, you know, get all the papers down, because it was very easy doing Hillside, clicking a box and being like, yep, doing it. Whereas, you know, you're doing a different degree and you have to pick all your different papers, make sure you're doing them all right, you know. So yeah, and then going back home, I mean, of course, I'm a very big homebody. I love being at home. I'm sure mum would have loved me having it home as well. But I think it was really nice to be in Dunedin, and, you know, that's a whole life experience as well, you know, living with other people, all different personalities. I'd already established some friends by then. I was going into a flat, and I'm really happy staying here. But obviously I've got one more year to go, and I'm hoping that next year I can go on an overseas exchange, so that, you know, my Dunedin stint might finish this year. So yeah.
I think that's pretty cool that you mentioned that, because like Tana said right at the start, he's gone back home and life carries on. He's gone back home, but it's his home is now somewhere else. You know, you set up your roots somewhere else. And I guess the same thing for you is, you go back home, but because you stayed in Dunedin, you've now got a whole different family, I guess, you know, of people that you wouldn't have met if you had been at home, or who knows. And I think it's also important to remember that you're only in a place for a short amount of time. You can choose whether you want to go or not. Like you've said, hey, maybe you go on overseas experiences, which is great, you know. And there's nothing stopping you from doing those things. There's no right or wrong. There's only a choice that you make, which is important to remember. And so when you were talking about university now, so far everything sounds amazingly beautiful. Do you want to talk about some of the struggles that you might have had at university? Because, you know, university sounds amazing, but as we know, university is not all amazing. There's tough times. Do you want to talk about some of your tough times, or would you like to, Sari?
Yep. If I have an initial thought about tough times, I guess it's probably the culture in Dunedin can be very people like to call it the party city.
Yeah.
And I think that can be very challenging, because for me, I'm not very much one of those people that always wants to go out. Like, I really enjoy a movie with friends, or staying at home, or doing something a little bit different. So I think sometimes it can be very difficult if your group of friends is like, that's what they want to do, and sometimes you just have to think for yourself and say, oh, that's something I don't want to do, and you just want to you know, stay at home.
Yeah, totally.
So yeah, so that can be a challenge that people might find throughout life as well. Other people want to do something, you don't really want to do the same thing, and you just need to think, okay, I need to think for me and decide I don't want to do that.
Yeah.
Probably another challenge that really stuck out for me is that when I first moved here, it was a very big change because none of my closest friends from home moved down too. So going into a hall with 500 people, and I had no initial friends to start, so I really had to put myself out there and find someone to be my friend, and obviously I've come out the other side very happy, so yeah.
It's so interesting you say that, because I was at a school this afternoon, and that was the main question somebody asked me. That, in fact, I get this question asked all the time: is will I make friends? And I think it's the onus is also on you as a person. Whether you're 17 years old or 18 years or 40 years old, if you're just going to be hiding at home the whole time, you're not going to meet anybody. And sometimes you have to do the hard things. Like I said, you have to do the hard thing to go out for a little bit and meet some people. And sometimes the hard thing is to say no to the group as well and go, actually, no, I just want to just chill at home. But you can't do both. You can. I don't know if you can do both. I don't know if you can go out all the time and be happy and stay inside all the time and be happy. I don't know if that's possible. Tanya, what are your thoughts? I mean, you're an RA now. You'll be seeing some young people that'll be challenged by meeting new people.
Yeah, I think it's very interesting. Like, obviously, there's going to be natural people that are quite outgoing naturally, and so they're going to make friends regardless. But there's also people, and this happens always within the first couple of weeks, where people change themselves to try and fit in to the new culture that everybody's creating. So you're going to have people that are probably the most outgoing they ever will be in those first couple of weeks, and then you probably never hear from them again. And you also have people that are quite shy and then change completely. But I think it was also quite interesting because getting to know my residents in the first couple of weeks, you get to know them and you do these activities, but you're right, the onus is on them. We can get all the students in a college together, but we can't force friendships. We can't force those connections. They just happen naturally. And so it can be challenging, especially when you see, those couple of students on the side that aren't really engaging with anyone. But I guess that's something that you just build over the year and hope that, even if they're not part of the big group, maybe they'll find one or two strong connections which they carry through the university journey.
Yeah, and sometimes it's just about quality, not quantity. I got that really mixed up. It's about quality, not quantity. You might have one or two friends, and that's all you need, as opposed to many, many friends. But it's hard when you're 17-year-old. It's very hard to go, oh, I've only got one friend or two friends. Oh, this is pretty hard. Yeah. So, Emily, back to you. What are so you've had these challenges when you moved down, when you went flatting, when you moved away from that initial experience, were there any other challenges? The reason I bring this up is because sometimes people forget about that life actually still happens around you. So yes, you're studying, but you're still a human being, and you might get sick. Things might happen in your life, things might happen at home. Did anything like that happen to you that challenged you in a different way?
Well, I think a massive challenge that all of us would have faced is COVID.
Yep.
I was obviously in my first year of flatting, and I remember, the moment that on the news where they were like, we are going into stage 4 lockdown, and I was the only South Islander in my flat, and everyone else was from North Island. And they were, the girls started crying, thinking they wouldn't be able to go home. They'd have to be stuck in Dunedin and and the unknown, because we really didn't know how long it was going to last for.
Totally.
So that was probably a challenge. And, going from your university and, you've got your university routine to then go back home and, you just want to, when you're at home, you just want to have fun, sit on the couch, watch some movies with your family or whatever. Whereas, you still had to get in the zone and still have to be, sorry guys, I'm watching my lecture, and get back to studying. And then, if I'm thinking about any flatting challenges, I would recommend flatting to anyone, because with, all sorts of people, because that's when I think you learn more about yourself, and you also learn about other people and how, you can, how to work with different personalities, because everyone's different and everyone's different in their own ways. So being in a flat, I've always been in an all girls flat, whether it's 6 people or in this year I'm with 13 of us.
Wow, 13.
I mean, there's 5 of us downstairs, so it's not so bad, but overall in the house there's 13 of us. And through the years I think I've learned a lot about myself and really grown into the person that I am today.
Yeah, and I think it goes back to what we said before, is your greatest learning happens out of the classroom. In your flatting, you would have learned so much about who you were as a person. And I remember, Tane, last year, because when you go flatting your first year, you expect people to be the same as in your first year when you went to university, and people actually start being themselves. You see the real person when you start living with other people. And that would have been interesting for you. I know, Tane, you had some interesting challenges there.
Yeah, it was definitely challenging at times. I think also because, since people were so close, we didn't actually end up doing as much as we probably hoped. But I guess also understanding that everybody has different priorities. It's a bit different in the hall when you've all got a set lunch and dinner time because, that's when you're going to catch people. But when you're in a flatting environment and people start to work and people start to take on other commitments in second year, you start to realize that everybody's becoming more individualized again. And that was something I didn't particularly enjoy, but I guess that's just something that I had to learn to deal with.
Yeah, I think it's important to say because you got to deal with stuff, right? Everyone has their own norms. Everyone's world is their norm, and you're like, oh, okay, cool. I've got to deal with this, but what about my norms? That's a really tough one. But that's how you grow. That's how you grow, or you sink, right? This is the way you go.
Sink or swim.
Sink or swim, exactly. That's right, exactly. Yeah, it's my way. Oh no, get out of here. Okay, damn. Crazy. And Emily, so you've done the psych, you're doing the management, the marketing. Yeah, is there anything that in your study that has just stood out for you in your papers that you go, hey, this is something totally random that I've done, which is just blown your mind? Or not blown your mind?
I think, well, I thought this year, when you think about marketing, you think, oh yeah, it's just, everyone has their own idea of what that is.
Yeah.
But then going through the degree, it's actually, there's so many different avenues within marketing. Like that's only one subject and there's so many avenues. There's digital marketing, there's like campaigns, there's, I don't know, there's so many options. I'm not going to list them all, but it's very interesting to see, even with just one of my majors, I've got so many avenues I can take, and then, hopefully build up and, take more of my other majors and stuff like that. So yeah, I think that's the only thing that's like really interesting for me, that I'm like, wow, there's just so many options. It's insane.
I think that's important because that's quite valid, because lots of people think they know what they want to do in their life, or they think they have a perception of marketing or finance or accounting or PE, for example. But it's actually when you start doing it, you go, actually, wait a minute, what my perceived reality is totally incorrect to what it actually is. And which is why it's important to ask questions and go along to things to find, even if you think you know what you're doing, you actually, most of us don't actually know what we're doing. We think we know what we're doing, but we just make up stuff the whole time to fit our reality.
Yeah. And I think on that note, I think our society is just so used to asking people what they want to be when they grow up.
Totally.
And it can be hard to say, like some people might find it really challenging to say, I don't know what I'm doing.
Yeah.
Like for me, when people ask me, I'm like, oh, this is I kind of talk in things as in like a 5-year plan rather than, okay, like you're never going to know where you're going to end up in life. There's going to be so many hurdles. There's going to be so many jumps, this amazing opportunity could come up and you just don't have any clue. So I think it's very difficult for people to, get tied down to this one idea. I mean, as I've seen in my past, I've done that, and I know now I shouldn't be tying myself down to something because that might not happen,
Yeah. I really like that because I had this phrase somewhere, and basically the person said that the problem with society, with humans, is we get married to an idea. And when you get married to the idea, if you don't have the open-mindedness to change the fact that actually this can change, this is when you get upset, and this is when conflict happens. And like you said, if someone said to you, hey, what are you going to do? What are you going to become when you grow up? And you go, I want to be whatever. Let's just go with the dentist, and you married that idea. And some people are unlike you, Emily, because some people are like, oh, I didn't get into dental school, my life is all over. This is it. I'm in trouble now, and that they carry that pain through the whole whatever they do, because they married this idea that they had to be a dentist to be successful. And like you said, society has these things that you have to be XYZ to be successful, and you know, it's a tough one, because success is measured in so many different ways, and unfortunately, society measures it in a title or finances, which for some people it's okay, and for some people it's not okay. But you're right. I think this things that the narrative has got to change around, and it's got to start at school. I think it's got to start at school. When you got to go, hey, I don't know what I want to do. I'm just learning stuff just because I want to learn stuff.
Yeah, exactly. And then through that, people can, really tie into what they really enjoy, or like their passion, and then hopefully their passion and their career can be happily married together.
Exactly. Yeah. I can hear bells right there. There we go. Yeah, crazy. Yeah. Yeah, crazy. And I think this is what's happened to you. It's been an accidental thing that's happened to you, where you found your passion, which you've always had, and it's come down to this, which is great. And the funny thing though, Emily, is most of our podcast guests that we've had on here, this has happened to them. They've accidentally fallen into what they wanted to do. They had a plan and it's changed dramatically, which I think is a message that we want to say out there, that the world has changed. 50 years ago, 40 years ago, the professions were struck. This is it. You're going to go to university, you're going to do this, or you're going to go to trade. But now, even at the age of 40 or 50, you can still study and do something totally different. And like you said, you have no idea what you're going to be doing, but you have an idea that the idea can shift. And, next year on your overseas exchange, a whole another thing might happen. And you have no idea.
Exactly.
I think, Tana, you're facing that battle at the moment as you're finishing your degree.
Yeah, definitely trying to figure out what's the next step. And it's, I guess it's quite weird as well, because the last time I felt this way was when I was deciding on university. What subject did I want to take at university, and what university did I want to go to? So it's quite surreal to think, so much has happened in 3 years, yet I'm still, I guess you always come to a crossroad where you've got to decide, you've got to make those decisions. And I guess as time goes on, it comes down to the fact that it doesn't matter what decision I make. It's more about making a decision instead of not doing either, because I guess that would be the ultimate downfall. So as I go forward, obviously I'll get people's insight and get an understanding of what I want to do next, but also understand that regardless of what I do, I think it will be beneficial in different ways.
Yeah, there's no good or bad. There's just a decision. That's what it is. Emily, do you want to tell us where you'd like to go for your overseas experience, if you could, if you had a chance?
Yes, yep. So I've got Italian heritage from my mum. So Italy is definitely on the cards for me. I've always had a love for Italy. So when I found out that I could do some studies there, I was so thrilled and excited. I was just like, oh my goodness, this is amazing.
Yeah.
And initially I thought, oh yes, I'd like to do my final year, I'd like to do it all at one place at the University of Bocconi, which is in Milan. So it's a very prestigious commerce university.
Awesome.
And I thought, I want to do the full year there. Then when I went to the career the exchange advisors, they told me otherwise, and they said, actually, sorry, it's changed now. You can only do 1 semester there.
Yeah.
So then I was like, oh my goodness, it was almost more exciting, because then I get to choose another place I can go to.
Yeah.
So then, looking at all the range of different universities, I was attracting myself towards Canada. And then I thought, when I did my further research, I was like, actually, that university doesn't look so joyous, as I say. Watching some vlogs of people on campus, and they say their opinion of the university. I'm like, right, that doesn't sound very good. So, move on to something else. And then eventually I stumbled across the University of Manchester.
Oh, wow, yeah.
So the Business Alliance School, and, research there. Manchester is one of the most livable cities. Well, it's been ranked one of the most livable cities in the UK. And I think that really excited me, because I have always had an interest in the UK, and maybe one part of my life I could live there for a little bit. So if I can do some studies there, that's a start, and I'll see where I go from there.
Yeah, and how awesome is, so I like how you reframe that. Oh, only one semester, actually, wait a minute, this is opportunity. And if you had just gone to one university in a year versus two, your whole life would be totally different. So
yeah, exactly.
the importance of reframing is so clearly. But I think, Emily, you've reframed lots, and I think this is why I've enjoyed talking to you today, because you've had lots of hurdles along the way, but you haven't spoken those hurdles. A lot of people say, oh, I didn't get into dental school, oh, my life is all over. But you're like, hey, wait a minute, this is an opportunity to me to do something totally different. Oh, I can't do a whole year in Italy. Oh, okay, cool. Wait a minute, I can go to another place. So, those are really cool hurdles that you've crossed, or reframed, actually, reframes. Let's come back to your ice cream. Any ideas to take that forward, or was that just a part of your life that you've done? Happy days put aside.
So at the moment, obviously, I did that in my second semester of third year, and
Yes.
having 2 extra years of university, I knew that it'd be quite difficult to really set the plan for that and get that going. It was kind of like, maybe I could start that venture after I finished university.
Yeah.
So yeah, those were my initial thoughts. I thought, okay, I can still research into it and, kind of progress it a little bit later. And as I've seen this semester, I've just been so busy that, I haven't even had an extra moment to, think about it. And hopefully next semester isn't as busy, but yeah, I think that's kind of, I'll see where it goes, but if something doesn't eventuate or I decide on something else, it doesn't matter, because I've learned all those skills from doing the program. So whether it's Zilla ice cream or whether it's something else, even if it's like, a wee cafe or something, then I know I've got the skills that I am able to do that. So yeah, I'm sure my entrepreneurial spirit will definitely be doing something in the future for sure. I'm just not sure what it will be right now.
I'm pretty sure it will. I know that in the future we'll see your name somewhere doing some pretty cool things. I have no doubt about that there. But I'm chuckling inside because we spoke about Zealand ice cream and you mentioned a cafe. And I always reflect to you about food, because food will be part of your life. Where does that come from? Has that just been part of your family that, hey, I enjoy food stuff?
Yeah, I've been really lucky that my mum has exposed me to so many different foods and different cultures. I've been very fortunate to have traveled around the world as well, and obviously that's just an experience that everyone wishes for. And yeah, I think we're just natural born foodies. My mum's Italian, so pizza, pasta, that just got to start there. And I don't know, I've just always loved food. I love the experience of cooking it and enjoying it with other people. I think that's a key thing. I mean, do you know about Emmy's Eats? That I do cakes and stuff?
No, I had no idea about that. Tell us about that. What is this? Yeah,
I'm spinning my own podcast here.
Go on, exactly. Why not? Go wild, yeah.
Yeah, so I mean, again, on the whole foodie train, I've got a wee like side hustle kind of passion project, let's call it, that I started making cakes. Yeah, and so I've got an Instagram where I do that, and again, like that's super awesome, because one thing, I can do something for fun, and second, I'm getting experience as well, running my own social media, taking the like content photos and like stuff like that, and like working with customers and things. So again, like that's another avenue of another project I've got on the side. I just love having my wee passion projects. Got things going all the time.
So entrepreneur number one. I see that coming through quite a bit. Yeah. So your Emmy's Eats, is that only for Dunedin, or is that?
I mean, that started as a basically a food account where I just post everything I eat,
Yep.
just, go to a restaurant, do a wee review or something, or I
Yep.
make something myself and I post it.
Yeah.
Someone might ask for a recipe. Here you go, share it.
Yeah.
And then it evolved into what it is now, basically, where I still post the food I make and eat, but I also have the cakes I make as well. And it was really nice to have while I'm studying, because it is just a wee hobby, and it is also therapeutic and a stress reliever, so it's a nice activity to do. And my flatmates love me for it because they get all the offcuts.
I can imagine. Right, I better put an order in some point after your break. That's very cool. But the cool thing for you here is university for you has not just been about the study, and I'd like to highlight this, that it's you've taken off the initiatives and you've done some pretty cool things. I mean, it's so easy to just sit on your laurels, go to class, but like you said before, you've done these pretty cool things which are your passion, and I'm sure you've learned a lot about a lot of things, not just yourself, but just about life by doing things, which is pretty cool. Yeah, so well done you. We've been talking for almost an hour now, so time flies when you're having fun. So our podcast is called Bastards of Knowledge, and what we'd like to ask our guests is, if you had to give one piece of advice to fit into a basket of knowledge, what would you say to our listeners from Emily's experience?
I think one funny saying that's always resonated with me is you do you. You just got to do you, and if the people around you aren't loving you, then find some other people. You just got to stay true to yourself, and I guess within that, it's okay to do something different or be different to your circle at the moment, because the right people are there. You just might not have found them yet. So I think that's really important. And again, like, just putting yourself out there, and just, take all the opportunities that come, because they might not come again. So you got to really take them in and go for it.
Yeah, totally. I really like that you do you boo, right? That's what it says.
Yeah, you do you boo.
Exactly. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And I think you're right. You're a classic example. You did the dentistry because you thought that's what you want to do. It didn't work out for you. You went and spoke to somebody. They said, "Hey, give us a crack." You did it. You do you. And then you saw this. You had an idea to enter a competition with Audacious. She's like, "Cool. You do you." You did it again. You started doing your footy account because that's your jam. You do you. Happy days.
Yep.
You got involved with Chiasma because, hey, you do you again. You're like, this is just me doing stuff. So I think you're the epitome of that saying. So and I think our listeners out there will be, yeah, we should listen to that. And just do what you need to do for yourself, and don't worry about other people, because, like you said, Emily, is the right people will come to you at the right time. And if you try to satisfy everybody, you end up satisfying nobody, especially yourself. I think that's a great place to end our podcast today. Tanya, anything you'd like to say to Emily before we round up?
I guess just more bouncing off Emily's idea of you do you is also find time for you, and that doesn't have to be just having time to do nothing, because I know that I find quite challenging myself to actually find time where I just do nothing, because that's not what I enjoy. But it's more about doing things that make you happy and they're actually for you. We get so caught up sometimes in the busyness of life that we actually lose ourselves along the way. So, it's really important for you to do you, but also to understand that you are actually doing it for you as well, not just doing it for other people for the sake of doing it.
Yeah, I mean, what a great way to end. You do you, but don't forget to find the time for you. Oh, that's a great rhyme right there. I should become a rapper. But awesome. Thank you so much, Emily. This has been really, really enjoyable for myself, and I'm sure listeners will also enjoy it. To listeners out there, hopefully you're going to pick up that piece of knowledge of you do you. Hopefully you've seen the journey that Emily has had and get inspired by actually just giving things a crack. And as always, feel free to like, share our podcast, and jump online and ask us any questions. And yeah, thank you, Emily, for being on our podcast.
Thank you. Thank you so much for having me.
No worries. And to everybody out there, stay safe, keep warm, and don't forget to always put something into your box of knowledge. Thanks, everybody. Bye.
Thank you for listening to Baskets of Knowledge.
Yeah, we hope that you found something useful to put into your basket of knowledge. And as we said before, remember to put something little into your baskets of knowledge every week. And as always, feel free to like, comment, and share this podcast. Thanks, everybody. Bye.